they shared, these left-wing interest groups did, they shared widely the home addresses of the Supreme Court, not only encouraging protests, but allowing people who would do harm to the justices themselves to easily figure out where these Supreme Court justices were living.
Clay hit me with this morning right as the news broke. Big story here, and it's got a lot of people on edge. The headline up on the Daily Mail is Armed California Man Arrested for Threatening to Kill Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh at his Maryland home. The cops say he was angry over the Roe v. Wade leak, and he was carrying a handgun, a knife, and pepper spray. Now, we've said here on this show that our concern ever since the leak was that some lunatic leftist might take it upon himself or herself to try some violence against the Supreme Court in order to change the outcome in some way. But let's remember, this is not just about the lunatics out there. What's going on here is lawless across the board. They should never have allowed these protests, which were clear violations of federal law. They should have arrested every individual outside the home of a Supreme Court justice for intimidating members of the federal judiciary. It's illegal. And the Democrats themselves, like Chuck Schumer here, have something to answer for, because listen to the rhetoric. Now, this was Chuck Schumer before the leak. This was in 2020. Play.
And they're taking away fundamental rights. I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price. You won't know what hit you if you go forward with these awful decisions.
I'm just wondering, Clay, how does a Supreme Court justice pay a price? What is that supposed to mean? They have lifetime tenure.
Chuck Schumer apologized for those comments, but they have set the tone for what is acceptable behavior as it pertains to responding to the Supreme Court. And let me just say this, Buck. You and I, the moment that the Supreme Court leak occurred, talked about this in great detail, that until this opinion is officially released, every single member of the conservative majority is in danger, and their families are in danger. And now, thankfully, this guy was caught. But this proves let's not underrate here, he's trying to assassinate a Supreme Court justice to stop Roe v. Wade from being overturned. That's his motivation based on the facts that are out there right now. We'll talk to Carol Markowitz about this, who had the details first that I saw from anybody, that this guy was arrested in the middle of the night, armed with multiple weapons outside of Brett Kavanaugh's house, and told authorities that he intended to kill Kavanaugh to try to keep Roe v. Wade from being overturned. This is why I said that they should have, and I still stick to this, expedite the release of this opinion, and also that John Roberts has to join it. Because right now the talk has been that there are 5 votes to overturn Roe, and Roberts has been sitting on the sideline, not committed. He needs to join it because it needs to be a 6-3 decision, because even after this decision comes down, if it's a 5-4 decision, you are putting a target on all of these Supreme Court justices as long as Joe Biden is in office and controls the Senate. Because I hate that we even have to talk about this, but if a conservative justice were assassinated, then Joe Biden would get to name his replacement, and the Senate would get to confirm that replacement. That's a reality of how our government is organized right now. And so, at a minimum, I believe we need to get Justice Roberts on board to take this to 6-3 so that you're at least not constantly a heartbeat away from this the opinion being overturned. And it needs to be released immediately. I told you this, Buck. One of the first things I said when this news came out was, I understand that they have a set template of, we're hoping to release this on June the 23rd or whatever it might be, near the end of the term. I said they need to go ahead and expedite this, get it out, make it the law of the land, and take the targets in the short term off of the Supreme Court justices and their families. I'll also mention this, Buck. Nancy Pelosi, it passed unanimously in the Senate, more security for the Supreme Court justices in the wake of all these additional threats that have come out. Nancy Pelosi in the House has not allowed that to pass yet. So the Senate passed it. There was money there. We can send $40 billion to Ukraine, but we can't pass a bill to protect Supreme Court justices and their families to the utmost. It's a disgrace.
Merrick Garland and his DOJ just decided that the federal law that prevents intimidation of judges, which is exactly what a protest outside of someone's home is meant to do. You want to protest the Supreme Court, you go to the steps of the Supreme Court. I won't say God bless, but it depends on what you do. But
people have been doing that for generations.
You have the right under the Constitution to do that. I'm just, I'm not going to say God bless for the pro-abortion lunatics that are doing it. But the point is, they have the legal right, and I defend their legal right, and I would never say otherwise. You show up at somebody's home, it's saying, we know where you live, Judge. We know where your kids probably go to school, too. You better watch yourself, which is why there is a federal law against this. And everyone, I think, who's paying attention is really sick of the way that on any politicized issue, Democrats get more than the benefit of the doubt, and Republicans, or somebody who's associated with the right or whatever, sits in solitary confinement and gets annihilated by the justice system. Let me also say yesterday, DHS put out a warning bulletin, Clay. You may have seen this one. And it was a little bit curious because DHS bulletin warns, this was on CNN, we could see more volatile threats fueled by election misinformation. What? And upcoming Supreme Court abortion ruling. Oh, that's really interesting. Who is going to engage in violence based on the Supreme Court abortion ruling? The answer? Pro-abortion zealots who are the Democrat base. That is the truth. Now, the corporate media doesn't want to say that. They also don't want to talk about, Clay, there have been 4 attacks in recent weeks on pro-life centers, 2 fire bombings, including one just a couple of days ago in Amherst, which is basically Buffalo, New York, also in Madison, Wisconsin, and there was vandalism in Hollywood, Florida, and Ashland, Texas as well, of pro-life pregnancy centers. So there's already political violence going on against the pro-life side that doesn't even get reported on.
Left-wing extremism is a real thing, and I haven't heard Merrick Garland mention it at all. As tomorrow, we're having a primetime hearing on January 6th. On June 8th, we had an attempted assassination of a Supreme Court justice based on the reports, and we'll get more details on this. But based on those reports, that's what was that's what was attempted here. Buck, I can't even remember. You may be able off the top of your head. I know you're a history buff too. I can't even remember a prior incident like this where a Supreme Court justice's life was in danger such as this. And I'll just take you a step back. Supreme Court justices used to drive themselves to the Supreme Court. Some of them would walk or bike to the Supreme Court. The amount of security that they needed was relatively low for generations. And they had relatively normal lives in the Washington, D.C. area, and so did their families. They would go to shopping malls. They would go out to restaurants. No security anywhere around them. And what, unfortunately, the era that we're in right now, these left-wingers this dude traveled all the way from California, evidently, with the goal in mind of killing Kavanaugh. And we should mention this. They made a big deal. All in addition to the fact that they were protesting outside of Supreme Court justices, which is, as you've pointed out, a violation of the law. These left-wing interest groups they shared widely the home addresses of the Supreme Court, not only encouraging protests, but allowing people who would do harm to the justices themselves to easily figure out where these Supreme Court justices were living, random neighborhoods in the suburbs in Virginia and in D.C. and in Maryland. It's inexcusable.
Clay, we watch this play out, and we say we all knew this was what was happening in terms of the temperature.
We told you this was going to happen on this show.
And it's also worth noting that it wasn't just rhetoric. When this broke, the leak I'm talking about. Oh, but we still haven't found the leaker, by the way.
Yeah, of course not.
Of course not. And you know what's going to happen? Mark my words. Put this one down. Mark down this prediction. The leaker in 6 months or 12 months is going to come forward with a Washington Post or a New York Times op-ed will be hailed as a hero for trying to subvert the court, and will get a massive book deal and go on the speaking circuit within 3 months of that op-ed. Guaranteed, because the left takes care of their soldiers and those who fight for their crazy cause. I just want to point out that the only acceptable response after the leak and then the protests at Supreme Court justices' homes was from Democrats, should have been, guys, the Supreme Court is sacrosanct. You want to talk about protecting our democracy? We protect the Supreme Court. We don't try to intimidate. We abide by the ruling. We abide by the decisions. That's not what they said. They said people are angry. I understand why they're so upset. There's an angry mob outside of multiple Supreme Court justices' homes, and you have top Democrats and the White House being cowards. And honestly, worse than that. I mean, they're really just complicit in creating this completely unacceptable and inhospitable for democracy environment.
How in the world have Joe Biden and Merrick Garland not had public press conferences to condemn this situation right now? How quickly do you think they would have gotten in front of the cameras if this had been some right-wing zealot arrested for an assassination attempt of a Supreme Court justice on the left wing of the spectrum? They would have been in front of the camera 10 minutes after the news broke.
I mean, I bring this up because we talked about it earlier in the week. They thought they were heroes for sending the DOJ sending dozens of armed men in to arrest Roger Stone because he was a threat to our democracy, because he made a joke on DM that they had no sense of humor about. So they will crush anybody as a threat to democracy if it suits their political whims. But when there's a real threat to the system, which, as you point out, the stakes now for the Supreme Court, I mean, this couldn't be any higher for that institution.
But they've never been in more danger than they are right now, because we've never had a situation like this.